Supervisor Fletcher.
Thank you. I would second that motion. And to reiterate 2 points on the hookahs, those are not electronic, and they're not the e-vaping devices. And I think when you have a facility where you go into it, where there's identification checked on the way in, you consume the product on site, you don't take that product out with you, is not the intent behind what we're doing. And so I would support that effort to create a carve-out for those operations. And on the moratorium, I think what's important, which Supervisor Jacob outlined, is that it is designed to have some questions answered. It is designed to have a proper regulatory framework on the devices. It is designed to have actual testing of these devices in a regulated entity. And so it is a point at which any time those conditions have been met, we could undo it. And so the time frame is until such time as those concerns have been met. And so I think it's important to note that this board on the ban on the devices could at any point when we have a degree of confidence that those have been done, restore those back. And so it isn't really a one-year moratorium. It is a period of time until such time as we've addressed those concerns. A couple other quick points I want to make that have just come up in response to what's happening. I'm certain that no one in this room has ever sold these devices to children. But based on the letter we have from the superintendent, there's a 900% increase in youth using them, which means they're getting them from somewhere. And that's a problem. And that's a problem. And so proper enforcement is a part of having a regulatory framework, which is why if we take a temporary moratorium while we work with you to figure out a regulatory framework, we can begin to try and address these problems. The second thing is we keep hearing that if these devices, if we do a temporary moratorium, people will just get them on the black market. It's important to note that there is no regulatory framework for these devices right now. The FDA does not regulate them, does not test them, does not tell us what's in them. The state of California does not either. And so there is not a great difference, and there is a real problem with the THC cartridges. They're being bought on the black market. I agree with that. And those cartridges go in the devices that are sold in the shops today. And that is also what we are trying to do. Dr. Wooten alluded to this, but I think it's important because there's been a little misrepresentation. That is the majority of the problem. But the CDC website, and I'm looking at it right here, says, therefore, CDC recommends you should not use e-cigarettes or vaping products. Exclusive use of nicotine contained products has been reported by patients with lung case injury, and many patients with lung injury report combined use of THC and nicotine. Therefore, the possibility that nicotine-contained products play a role in the outbreak cannot be excluded. CDC continues to recommend that people refrain from using e-cigarettes or vaping products that contain nicotine, which means this is still a problem, which is a problem that we are working to try and address. And I understand, and I'm not, folks are in business to feed your families and take care of your kids. I get that. But that's a motive that's profit. We have an obligation that's different than that. We have an obligation to do what we can to protect public health. And we bear the responsibility and we bear the cost associated with our failure to do that. The folks who currently profit off of an unregulated industry that we know, based on CDC, FDA, state of California, and local public health officials is a problem, the folks who profit off of that industry are not the ones who are going to be responsible for taking care of these folks in the hospital. And they're not the ones who are going to be responsible for the health impacts and implications. And so we have an obligation to try and do that. And I just want to close by saying that as a young kid in the rural South, at a young age, I was at a county fair where they handed out candy-flavored smokeless tobacco in pouches. They were giving out Skull Bandits, and they were mint-flavored. And they had a booth, and you would walk by, and they would literally hand them to you. Seemed like a good thing to do. So I started using them. And then you go from the pouches to the long-cut flavors. And then you go from the long-cut flavors to the fine-cut flavors. And then eventually you go to full Copenhagen usage, which I did for many years. In an environment, both as an athlete, as a baseball player, and in the military, where it was very conducive and socially acceptable. And then you wake up one day having 3 major oral surgeries to rebuild your gum and jaw because you were addicted to one of the most addictive substances there is, which is nicotine. Now, I know how hard it is to kick nicotine because I failed to do it my entire life. I still fail to do it today. Every day I use nicotine alternative products, lozenges and gums. And the last thing in the world I want to see is an entire generation of kids who are getting addicted to nicotine at an early age because they will face a lifetime of dealing with that addiction. And in particular, for those who are addicted, we don't want to put you on the path of something that can make it worse. And again, for every person who uses this as a tobacco cessation, there are 80 kids who start using it. And so we are going to move expeditiously to protect kids, which is one part of the problem. We're going to move to answer questions around the devices in a temporary moratorium that'll give us the ability to bring that back online in a regulated framework so that we can ensure public health. And I'm hopeful that everyone here will help us do what we can with what we have where we are. It's not going to solve every societal problem or every single issue, but this action today is a positive step forward. Thank you.